When it comes to cheating with online exams, there are things that you can do to help mitigate the risks when you design and set up your exam. Even if you're getting assistance in setting up your exam, some things should be considered ahead of time so you can prepare accordingly. Note that there is a practice exam available in your courses for students, and it's a good idea to encourage students to take advantage of that or to create your own practice quiz. This allows students to get a basic experience of an online exam prior to taking their exam, and it ensures that they are more familiar with aspects of it like time limit, navigation, and gives them a chance to test different question types just in case there are equipment issues that they have. The number one thing you can do to mitigate cheating with an online exam, or any exam really, is to avoid giving students the same exam. If they don't have the same exam, it's much harder to cheat and it will be more obvious to you. The best practice is to let students know that they won't have the same exam ahead of time, which avoids the gotcha approach that sets up the students and instructor as adversaries in this to defeat one another rather than partners in teaching and learning. So the most basic option is to shuffle questions. You can have the questions load in a different order, which is fine if all your exam is multiple choice and you just want a very basic way to do this, or you don't care what order questions appear in. It doesn't work well if you have other question types and want to organize things, or you have some longer instructions that need to be paired with questions. This doesn't really give you a different exam, just an exam in a different order. So if students have too much time, they can navigate back and forth in the questions and try to match up answers. You can also shuffle answers only, so different students are giving a different response when they choose A or B, etc. Just don't use all of the above or A and B only type answers. Now, this only prevents someone from sharing which multiple choice letter to choose, not the actual correct answer. So it's better used in combination with other tactics. Alone, it doesn't necessarily mitigate much of the risk. When it comes to multiple choice or true and false questions, the best option is to randomize them. This can be done by using the categories in the question bank. You can make pools of questions for each exam to draw on. You could even have a category for true and false, or for each chapter or a topic, and select random questions from each of those categories to build custom exams. Just be sure that all the questions in a category you use for random questions are worth the same grade. Once this is set up, you can always add more questions to the question bank for future exams, which helps avoid students sharing between semesters. You can also set this up with a selection of essay topics, although essay topics or short answer questions are more difficult to cheat on without being caught. It is good to have more questions than you want on the exam. Otherwise, you're basically only shuffling the questions. You don't need to have 500 questions for a 20-question exam or quiz, but having even 1.5 times the number of questions is enough to give a lot of permutations, so students do get different exams. This does mean planning ahead and ensuring you have the extra questions. Even if someone shared an exam, they're only sharing the questions that they saw. Randomizing questions does not work well for providing students choice, so it may require simplifying some things that are done in a face-to-face situation if you want to use random questions. Choosing the timing can also make a big difference. Consider how long you'd give students to do the exam in person. You don't want to give them too much extra time to write the quiz or exam. The more time they have, the more chance they will attempt to look in their notes or search if the exam is closed book, or be able to communicate with other students. For shorter multiple choice questions, about 15 seconds per question is often fairly safe. If your questions are longer or require calculations, etc., you may need to give more time. You can always have somebody test this ahead of time and let you know how it went for them. Testing it yourself is maybe not the best option as you are more familiar with the material and the questions. If your questions are longer or require calculations, you definitely need to give more time. If you're using multiple small quizzes, you can use the first one to gauge if you got the timing right or not and adjust for later quizzes based on the information you see when viewing the attempts. You will be able to see how long most students took to submit their exam versus how much time you gave them. If a lot of students finished the exam quickly, you can tighten up the timing. If a lot of students went right to the time limit or did not finish the exam, you definitely need to provide more time and may want to adjust the grades for that first one. Note that some people choose to lock the navigation in an exam to avoid students going back and forth between questions. This prevents students from using a number of strategies that are often recommended to be good practice when taking an exam, so tightening up the time limit instead is a more thoughtful approach. Another way to mitigate cheating might seem counterintuitive, but it really isn't. Giving students additional attempts on an exam or quiz reduces the stakes on that first attempt, meaning that there's less reason to cheat. If the stakes are lower and they can learn from their mistakes, then there's less pressure to get things perfect the first time, and thus less reason to cheat. It doesn't work as well with longer answer questions because then those have to be hand graded, but it can be a good option for shorter multiple choice quizzes, especially ones with a large question bank. It's possible to give a second attempt or actually as many as you would like and take the average of the attempts so the original attempt factors in but can be improved. Or you can take the highest grade and let each student improve on their mark. If you do this, be sure to check the setting for each attempt builds on the last and set it to no if you want them to have a different exam. Even if students look things up, if they're getting different questions, they are actively working to learn based on what they struggled with the first attempt, and they have no guarantee they'll see the same questions again. As before, it's best practice to warn students of that ahead of time. You can also use quizzes at the beginning and the end of a chapter and allow students to retake it to see how much they've learned. Taking the highest mark here would be best, or use it as a self assessment. Since students already know some of the questions and what they struggled with, they can be more focused on their learning during the unit. And since they know that they can improve their mark if they put in the effort, but won't necessarily see the same questions, copying the questions doesn't really benefit them other than as a way to learn. If you just want to use it as a self testing with no grade, you can always use the same questions. Later, using similar questions on graded exams can help reinforce the learning and the value of the practice exams. Using some or all of these strategies will help reduce the chances your students will cheat. When combined with other strategies, you can promote academic integrity and encourage learning.
For more information and lots of practical ideas, go to our UR Courses Guides page at this link shown at the bottom of this slide. Use the live buttons within the blue squiggle that we've added to this screenshot to navigate to the resources that most interest you as you move to remote teaching. This video was brought to you by Flexible Learning's Remote Learning Team. We are here to help.